everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this very chilly weekend. I know you are all very busy people, so we appreciate you joining us. So today we're going to talk about today's learning lunch is about new member onboarding, which is a really important part of what you do as school committee members. There's a lot of institutional knowledge that gets passed from person to person, and we want to make sure that we are getting our new members on board and started as efficiently as possible. We are going to, if you give me 1 second, I'm going to start the slideshow. I have to move things out of the way first because technology is wonderful and also kind of a pain. So, like I said, we're going to start with new member onboarding. My name is Alicia Mallon. If we have not met yet, I am a field director in the Northeast for the Massachusetts Association of School Committees. I am currently on the Neshoba Tech School Committee and have experienced onboarding two different ways myself. I was on my town committee before that. So what we're going to walk through today for you is basically, we're going to start with the Massachusetts requirements for new committee members. We're going to go through some helpful documents from the committee side that you can provide your new members with, and then some helpful documents from the district side that will also help your members get up to speed. Then we'll talk about some MASC resources. I will share some district resources for handbooks and protocols and some onboarding best practices. You should know as members that when we come out to do governance with you all, we're always collecting all the really good documents from everyone. So you may see your district floating around in here someday too. So first up, and we will have a question and answer period at the end too, if anyone wants to share some of their own best practices. So our first municipal requirement is for any new committee member, new school committee member, who has either been elected or appointed by the municipal authority, you must be sworn in by the municipal clerk. You must take the official oath of office. And that has to be done prior to your first official meeting. You can attend meetings prior to being sworn in, and this happens a lot, especially in our cities, because you have your elections in November generally, and you get sworn in January. Whereas those of us who have been on towns are very familiar with the process of being sworn into office at 8:39 p.m. because that's when they certified the ballots in your town hall, and then going to a meeting the next day. So no matter when you're having your first official meeting, you need to make sure that you are sworn in by your municipal clerk prior to the first official meeting at which you will be expected to vote. You should also make sure that you do the state ethics training. So we do not run the online ethics training that is run through the state of Massachusetts. It's approximately a 30-minute course, and it walks you through a module where it explains the ethics requirements to you. And then it has a check-in every so often where it quizzes you on it. You have to do that. You must renew it every 2 years. The state ethics training should also be done within your first 30 days. And now they have an online reporting system where everyone is doing it online, where it will notify you when you need to renew, but you should make sure you take that within your first 30 days as well. Some other requirements put forward by the state of Massachusetts. You're required to take charting the course. So charting the course, for those of you who either have not yet taken it or who are chairs and are hoping to encourage your new members to take it, charting the course is 8 hours of foundational training with us, with MASC. It covers a wide variety of things. We start with roles and responsibilities. We go through ethics, open meeting law, superintendent evaluation, special education, budgeting, negotiations. It's a really great way to not just learn the information, but connect with fellow school committee members and hear them ask questions that you may also have had. And then, maybe it creates some questions for you as well. Those are held around the state, and we have some upcoming dates that I have on a slide at the very end here. But we do try and bounce around the state and go to multiple areas, multiple geographical areas, because we know it's very hard for someone from Western Massachusetts to get to the Cape and someone from the North Shore to get all the way out to Worcester. We try and make sure we're covering the entire state. Charting the course has to be taken within your first year of being a school committee member. You can take it before, but you need to take it as a school committee member to be certified, and you need to take it within your first year. Important to note too, we welcome superintendents and business managers, any other administrators. We've even had FinCom members and select board members come to take charting the course with us. We welcome the people you will be working with to take the course as well, because it's really helpful for them to understand the training that you've received and to see what our discussion is with you about your roles and responsibilities. Also of importance to note is that the governance workshops that we do around the state, and we do these all over the place, and we will do governance workshops on whatever you need. Those do not replace charting the course, because charting the course is a specific requirement, and it is 8 hours of the specific foundational training, and 1 or 2 governance workshops on roles and responsibilities or superintendent evaluation is not going to add up to your requirement for charting the course. So when we're thinking about onboarding our new members, I know that for everyone who has ever been a new member, all of a sudden you've run a campaign or you've been appointed, and there is suddenly a fire hose of information. So thinking about some documents that we recommend you provide to your new members, always provide them with your policy manual. Policy is your largest governance document. Actually, in conjunction with your budget, your policy is your largest governance document. And having it available to your new members helps them understand how the district functions. It's a lot of information again, but it does help them get up to speed with some of the vocabulary around when we start throwing around the acronyms of MGL, Massachusetts General Law, and DESE and things like that. The policy manual can be really helpful. Also, any handbooks you have. One of the roles and responsibilities of a school committee member is to approve the handbooks. So making sure they have access to the handbooks. Sometimes you will have candidates who are parents or guardians in your district, but that's not always the case. So they may not know where to find your handbooks. Another thing you should really provide them is the contracts. And that would be all of your collective bargaining agreement contracts, your superintendent contract, any contract your district has with its employees. That is a helpful tool for school committee members to have. And I know from personal experience that negotiations is one of the most daunting things a new member can take on. So being able to understand what goes into a contract, what contract language looks like, can really help demystify that process. You should also supply them with all of your district calendars. And that's, as many calendars as you have. If you have just one, that's fine. But supply them with your district calendars so that they can familiarize themselves, if they're not already familiar, with what the school year looks like. When are your breaks? When do conferences come up? Your district calendar should have professional development listed on them. So that's a good place to understand that as well. As far as operating protocols, if your district does not have them, talk to your field director. That is one of the governance workshops we offer. But providing them with your operating protocols so they can understand how the committee gets business done and how the committee interacts with the administration can be absolutely invaluable for a new member. There's a lot of things going on and you're not sure where to start. Your operating protocols can really be that first step you need. We also recommend that you provide your new members with Robert's Rules of Order. Almost all of our school districts, I cannot think off the top of my head of any who don't. Almost all of our school districts operate by Robert's Rules, and some committees operate by what's called Robert's Rules with exceptions, which has to do more with some of your committees at large and your regional committees. But for the most part, Robert's Rules are the guiding principles and the guiding actions for a committee. It explains to you how votes are taken, what quorums are, the vocabulary behind calling to order, and what adjournments are. We also recommend, in addition to Robert's Rules, and it's not on this list, but I really should put it there, is the 10 reasons for executive session. Because as part of Robert's Rules, which will tell you the process of the meeting itself, the 10 reasons for executive session tell you the exceptions to when open meeting law applies. And it's still a part of open meeting law, but it is a completely different set of rules when you're talking about what can happen in open versus executive session. I would also recommend that you provide your most recent agendas to your new members. You don't have to print them all out for them, but letting them know where to access them so they can see what the business of the committee has been. That will also dovetail nicely with your operating protocols, because hopefully your operating protocols talk about how things get on agendas and how agendas get noticed within the 48-hour requirement, et cetera. And we also recommend our districts work with a year-long agenda, which sounds a little bit overwhelming at first, but the idea behind a year-long agenda is not that you have to put everything you will ever talk about for the entire year in that agenda. More so, we know when certain things happen throughout the year. You're always looking at your enrollment numbers being delivered to DESE by October. We know that budget season starts around, wintertime in most districts. Your city or town will have its own budget schedules, and your year-long agenda should reflect that. Knowing when to anticipate these things that are coming up is actually, it helps your new members understand the process of the school year. And if they would like to, say, ask to have something put on the agenda, it helps them understand where those pressure valves are in the school year to see where things can go on agendas and where things, where time commitments will increase and things like that. So some of the district level documents that we recommend that you provide for your new members. First and foremost, a flow chart or a chain of command. If you don't have students in the school district and you're coming on as a new committee member, you may not understand the structure of, frankly, any given building. Principals, assistant principals, what's a curriculum director, who do they report to, how many superintendents do you have, what do they actually do? Having a flow chart and a chain of command is helpful, not just for your new committee members to understand how the district works. For those of you who have taken charting the course, it helps with that secret fourth after policy, budget, and superintendent. It helps with that secret fourth responsibility of knowing where to send someone when you are not the person they should be talking to about their concerns. And that doesn't mean your constituents can't talk to you. It just means that if you know where to send someone to have their problem, their concern addressed as quickly as possible, that makes you a very effective school committee member. It helps you understand how the district works as well. We would also recommend that you have your available for your new members, your current strategic plan. And I just noticed the typo. I am so sorry, everyone. Your school improvement plans. So part of what you do as a school committee member is you help set the goals and the mission and vision of the district. Understanding where you are in that process is, it will help guide the choices you make moving forward. If you have a strategic plan that has expired, maybe that's part of your discussion going forward in the new year about how you set up the process of implementing a strategic plan. School improvement plans, it's important to be able to show your new members what's happening at the building level and how that translates to the district's overarching goals. If you have a portrait of a graduate, that is an excellent document to provide to your school committee members. We often say at Charting the Course that being a school committee member is one of the few elected positions where your actual constituency that you serve can't even vote for you, the majority of them, because you are there for student achievement and well-being first and foremost. So if you have an understanding of what the portrait of a graduate is, what is it you're looking to create as a district? What does it look like when someone leaves your district and moves on to workforce, military, secondary, continuing education, college, any of those things? What it looks like when they move on from your district. If you can understand what the goal is, what the end goal is for your students, it helps inform the decisions you make. And then again, the district calendar. And this may not just be the school days and the time off and things like that. This could also be a list of district events, common district events. This could be a variety of checkpoints for, say, your superintendent evaluation. What does the whole district calendar look like? So we have a question which I will answer live. Yes, we will send out these slides after I change that typo. I will edit them so that the typo is changed. But yes, you will have these slides available to you after this call. So our next slide This is an example of what we call a who you going to call slide. Years ago, when my oldest was in second grade, actually third grade, he was at a building that the administration of that building put together this really great graphic. And you can tell we were all late Gen X, early millennial kids because it was a who you going to call? And everyone answered Ghostbusters. But the idea behind a slide like this is one, it's helpful for your parents. Two, it's helpful for your committee members. This helps direct concerns and questions to the people who can best answer those questions and concerns for your constituents, for your parents, your guardians, your students. Not that the superintendent isn't going to eventually hear everything through being a manager, and not that people won't jump directly to the superintendent, but if it's something that someone else can handle before it reaches that level and get the problem solved, that is what we want to see happening for our students and families. So this one has examples of, I need to schedule a team meeting about my student's IEP. Here's the contact information for the team lead in your child's age group. There's been an event in my family and I'm concerned about my student. Here's the guidance counselor information for your building. The bus has been late every day this week. Here's the contact information for the transportation department. So being able to direct people to the places where they will most efficiently get their concerns addressed is helpful, not just for parents, but also for your committee members. So some other helpful documents and links that we can provide through MASC is we have a code of ethics. This is not the ethics training, but this is a code of ethics for school committee members that we can provide you copies of. We also have our own handbook, which goes through a lot of our basic governance roles and responsibilities, things like that. And under the model policy manual, under the services tab, you can find our model policy manual, which is where we keep examples for all of our districts of the policies that they should potentially have in their policy manuals. Of note there is you can also see other districts. Not every district hosts their policy manual with us, but many do. And you can find their policy manuals there as well. One of the fantastic things about that is, and I experienced this as a member when I was chairing our policy subcommittee, you can search those documents. So if you're looking for a specific policy about a specific subject, having them be searchable, not just ours, but the other districts as well, fantastic. So you'll also find on our website division lists and contact information for those division chairs. You can sign up for our listserv. We maintain a listserv by which members can go in and ask questions. We caution you to not sort of verge into deliberative questions. You're looking for informational questions there only. We do not want anyone to run afoul of open meeting law, but we do want to give you a place where you can talk to other members and, it's a great place for, hey, we are going to redistrict. I said the R word. I'm very sorry. We're going to redistrict. How many other districts have done this? Can you tell me what some of your experiences has been? Invaluable. We also really suggest that you have your new members sign up for our emails. And through our emails, they can get information on our trainings. So things like this, also charting the course. They'll get educational news updates and policy updates. And they can also sign up for the Daily Ed, which is a digest that Tracy Novick in our office puts out of information regarding education, not just in the Commonwealth, but around the country. It's a very informative resource to have, and it definitely saves a step. So when we're talking about our resources, this is what our new member page looks like. If you go to our website and right there under the yellow new members tab, you can find all of our documents that we maintain. We have frequently answered questions. We have our handbooks. Up there at the top, you can see there are other tabs for services and resources, news, events. This is a very helpful website for your members to have, masc.org, and it's where they can go to find all the things they wish to sign up for. And also on that website, you will find our resources, our staff, and our friendly neighborhood field directors. So, and most importantly on staff, our Director of Security, Brody. This is where you find your field directors. Important to note about your field directors is that Though we have territories, we are not territorial. When you call the office, you could get any number of a member of staff in the office. Field directors are usually in the field, and those really are our cell phone numbers. Reaching out to your field director for your area is probably going to be the most helpful. But as with any resource, we are all available to all of you. If you need to speak to any one of us, by all means, please do. Brody doesn't take phone calls, unfortunately. So then when we're also talking about some onboarding resources, one of the most effective things school committees do, and I will tell you that my committee does not do this yet, we're working on one, is to have a handbook available that is specifically for their school committee members. And when you think about handbook, please do not be overwhelmed by the idea of suddenly having to create a massive document out of, thin air. What your handbook for your school committee members should include is essentially all of the documents we were just talking about, but all in one place where they can find them. I've listed here for you some districts that have really functional handbooks and some that have really functional protocols. And moving to this next slide, this is actually the index for the Chelmsford School Committee's handbook. I told you if you do something really well, you end up in some of our presentations. So this is a great representation of the Chelmsford School Committee's handbook. They're one of my neighbors. They have a section that talks about who they represent, how they conduct business, and how they communicate. That's actually their operating protocols. Who they serve, how the service is done, how they communicate with each other, all lined up. They have not had to invent this information. They've pulled it into their handbook. They have a new member information section, which is fantastic. They have their policies that relate back to those topics referenced in the handbook. Great. And if you have this online and you can hyperlink it, even better. So this is slightly smaller than the first one, but this is the second half of their index. They talk about the schedule of meetings, the format, the types. So they explain executive session there. The 10 rules for executive session would be in there as well. They talk about effective communication. They talk about quorum and voting and open meeting law. They've just taken all of that information and put it into one accessible document. Then they also have some of the appendices that they have. I think this is fantastic because they have the warrant signing procedure. When you first get on a school committee and they put that first warrant in front of you, if you're the person signing it and it's millions of dollars and you are completely overwhelmed, having that information ahead of time will really help demystify that process. I also love, frankly, that they've included the appendix of acronyms because there's nothing Massachusetts loves more than making something an acronym. So I love that they have the appendix there, and they have a new member checklist. I will show you later on in another slide. There's another district that does a 30, 60, 90 checklist. Your first 30 days, the things you need to do, your first 60 days, your first 90 days, having a checklist for school committee members to, hopefully make sure they haven't missed anything because it is very overwhelming. I think that's fantastic. And this is just an example of what operating protocols can look like. This is actually my town. This is not my school committee, but this is my town school committee. I was already off at this point, but they have operating protocols that they provide their new members with, and they reconfirm and re-up their operating protocols every year. And they all vote on them and sign them, and they do that in a public meeting, and they post them for people to be able to see on their website. They remind each other, and it's part of their self-evaluation process. So some other suggested onboarding processes, and I can tell you that most of these come from multiple districts, but specifically Neshoba Tech and Concord Carlisle. Neshoba Tech that is my committee, and they have a really good onboarding process that they've worked on for many years, multiple steps. I've sort of condensed everything here. And Concord Carlisle is the source of the 30, 60, 90 checklist of things they should be doing in their first 30, 60, and 90 days. They also have all of those documents that I talked about in the handbook from Chelmsford. They have those documents in their 30, 60, 90 checklist, which I think is fantastic. So some suggested best practices for onboarding processes. Meeting with the chair and the vice chair. When someone is elected or appointed before their first meeting, have the chair or the vice chair or both sit down, make sure you're not in quorum, but make sure that they have access to you as a vice chair or a chair so that they can ask their questions. Again, if you're coming to this either without children in the district, or if you do have children in the district and you just, education is not your background, you're going to have a lot of questions. And I think meeting face to face with the chair and the vice chair is a really good way to um, bring you on board in a way that's friendlier and makes a for a more open relationship. If you have to have an identification card, I know my committee does, scheduling the identification paperwork and the Corey paperwork at the same time, maybe as the meeting with the chair and the vice chair, makes it more efficient. Not every district queries their school committee members, but if you're going to be in the building at times when students are in the building, some districts do. My district does, and it's part of that first meeting where we have our ID photographs taken, and we do the Corey paperwork. Make sure also that you're walking your new members through the email or whatever platform you're using. We want to make sure everyone is using district email because we want to make sure we are being faithful to open meeting law and public records requirements. But sometimes, one platform on your personal computer may not, connect correctly. Make sure they can access their emails and or whatever platforms you're using. If you're using one of the online platforms, my committee uses, we're actually switching right now to the Diligent scoreboard for meetings that actually keeps track of our meeting information. But make sure they can access that. So not only are they getting the messages, but they're getting the packets and they can be prepared for their first meeting. We would also suggest introductions with relevant administrators. We want to make sure that we're not confusing anyone and saying that the school committee members need to go in and have 30 90-minute meetings with administrators and pepper them with questions. This is more about making sure that everyone's familiar with that flow chart, that how the district operates. So putting a name to a face for, say, your business director or your special education director, just so that you know when they come to meetings that that's who you're talking to. If you can get tours of buildings in, that's also great. Sometimes with a large district, that can be very hard. But at the very least, get them into the building where you're going to be having your meetings so they understand how to get to the meeting room. They understand if you're supplying them with Chromebooks, where they pick up their Chromebooks, etc. Meeting with the superintendent, super helpful. School committee has one employee, the superintendent, and the superintendent has one boss, the body as a whole. So meeting with the superintendent and getting to know them a little bit and being able to ask questions also prepares them for their first few meetings. And then again, that 30, 60, 90 checklist that Concord Carlisle has, absolutely fabulous. So at this point, we can open it up for some questions. I am going to so we answered that question. The next question we have is, I'm looking to create one of these for Plymouth. Do we have the permission to copy these handbooks and protocols and tweak them for our district? So I usually supply, when I'm doing governance meetings, I usually supply examples of protocols from places. I would say if you want to copy a district's handbook, please contact the school committee and just let them know that you're looking at their handbook and ask them if it's okay. Most of the information in the handbooks themselves or in the protocols themselves is pretty universal because it's all based in Massachusetts general law or your policy manual, things like that. But just give them a call and say, I'm looking at your handbook. Is it okay if I use this as part of our process? So those are the two questions I have in the queue right now. Are there any other questions that anyone else would like? And there's Concord Carlisle. Thank you, Tracy. Almost all of our information from Concord Carlisle is online. It is, yes, which is, again, one of the very helpful things you can do when you're onboarding new members. Having to dig through a website to find where you can get that information takes up a lot of time. It's frustrating. If you can have a tab, a school committee tab where you keep all of that information, you don't necessarily have to print out and hand out, copies of your policy manual and your handbooks and things like that, but have it accessible to your school committee members. So, do we have any other questions? I do know that very often you'll think of a question tomorrow, or you'll think of a question later on. If you would like the slides, you can contact us and we will send them to you. We also have, well, we're just waiting to see if there's any other questions. We have some events coming up soon that we think you will all benefit from. First up, our next set of learning lunches, we have on February 27th, we have team data application. That's a session 2 of 2. We also have a legislative update on March 27th. And then we have budgeting as a school committee on March 6th. And I would actually want to double check those dates because I'm a little concerned about the two that say they're, oh no, I'm good. Thank you. And then I'm answering a question. Are we able to coordinate an in-person charting the course just for our district? If so, who would be the person to contact that to get planned? I can tell you we don't often do single district charting the courses. I would say find your field director and talk directly to your field director about what can and can't be done. And maybe there may even be one coming up very soon for you. Charting the course is its own animal, whereas the governance workshops that we provide are usually smaller and less time. There are requirements around charting the course that you may need to make sure you check the boxes on. I would say contact your field director, and you can find which field director is yours by going to our website, and it will, underneath our pictures, it says find your field director, and you can put in your district and it will tell you who your field director is. Also coming up, we have a Division 3 meeting. And by the way, when we send you these slides, those are actually hyperlinks. And then for your new members, we currently have 2 charting the courses coming up in March 7th and March 21st. And there are more coming that are being, that contracts are being finalized as we move. We also want to make sure that you know that our Day on the Hill is earlier this year than it has been in many years. We're very excited to tell you that Day on the Hill is going to be March 30th, and it is all at the State House this year. We're not doing one location and then moving to the State House. Everything is at the State House. So when you receive these slides, if you ask for them, those blue links are actually hyperlinks, or you can go straight to our website, to our events page, and you can register for these things there. So when the next question is, when a new member is elected, should that person participate in the next superintendent evaluation, or should the departing member who has been there for most of the year do it? So this is an interesting question, and the answer is it depends. Very often what happens is you have a superintendent evaluation that is happening in towns. It very often happens at the end of the school year, and you've just elected those people in April or May. And then in cities, you've been there for about half of the year. The school committee gets to decide. It's one of the things that is up to you, how and who participates. However, we like to recommend that you think of not necessarily the member, but the seat itself. The evaluation process is the summative assessment is a 2-part process by which individual assessments are created, individual evaluations are created, and then they're turned into the composite, which is supposed to reflect the voice of the committee. I can tell you from personal experience, I've done this. Very often what will happen is the outgoing member will complete their individual assessment, their individual evaluation, and they will leave it in the hands of the committee, and they are off the committee and the new person gets sworn in. At that point in time, for me, I had only been off the committee for a couple of weeks, and the new person had only been on for a couple of weeks. So the new person, the committee decided that the new person didn't complete an individual evaluation, but they were sitting in the seat and they got to discuss and vote on the composite, because it's the seat that votes, not the individual person. If you're talking about something where you have someone who's been there, a newer person, but they've been there for longer because maybe they got elected in November and now it's June. You could still have an outgoing member complete an evaluation, but remember, the only people who can vote are the people who are properly sworn in and sitting at the table at the time. So it depends. And that's another one that if you would like some assistance in superintendent evaluations, we run workshops on that all the time as well. So we'll give it a minute to see if there's any other questions. And if you, by the way, you can go hunting for all of those documents on other districts' websites. I know that field directors, we tend to collect operating protocols, agenda examples. We don't necessarily collect whole handbooks, but we can direct you to some of the places that do have handbooks. So if there's anything we can help you with there. And if you have new members that you want to, maybe you want to come out and have us do a refresher on operating protocols that everyone can participate in, we're more than happy to do that as well. So I am not seeing any other questions. I'm going to give it another minute and give you my contact information. So I am the field director for the Northeast. I'm above Boston and headed towards Maine, Vermont, and New Hampshire. Again, my name is Alicia Mallon, and you can contact me for the slides. I did send them to Anthony. You can contact your field director. I will send the slides to all of the field directors so they have them as well. But if there are no other questions, I think we can give you guys back a little bit of your Friday, which would be, fantastic. Oh, there is one more question. Should the superintendent evaluation process the school committee decides upon be policy or a practice? Good question. It should be a practice. You are required by law to evaluate the superintendent, but we actually do have a worksheet that we can send out to you as well that outlines the school committee and the superintendent agreeing upon the process for evaluation. That should be decided at the beginning of the process. If you're working on a 1-year cycle for your superintendent, at the beginning of the year, when you're talking about goals, talk about the process, decide that ahead of time. And our worksheet includes process for creating the composite, when the general dates will be, etc. It should be considered a practice, and it should be agreed upon by the group at the beginning of the process so that everyone knows it going forward. Excellent. So on that note, I hope everyone stays warm this weekend. And I hear there might be a sporting event on Sunday, something with Patriots, maybe. So enjoy your weekend, everyone. And I hope everyone stays warm.